Is up, DTube Steam blockchain. So today I want to talk a little bit about. So I got an invite because I signed up for it a couple of months ago to something that was called Upland. Upland. Basically, what they want to do is they sort of want to have virtual real estate, like in a game, but in a real map. And we have seen others done this successfully because, well, people are looking more into digital devices. So it's going to be interesting to see this experimentation with so-called virtual value, with so-called virtual real estate. For example, just as a funny idea, imagine if virtual real estate can become more valuable than real real estate. That might sound like a joke, but we know that people are people are pretty wild sometimes, especially in kind of random places. People would probably outbuy their friend or whatever. But I mean, just this concept of virtual real estate, or just virtual value that somehow connects to the physical world, is kind of cool, because I think, and people using this buzzword a lot, like connect people and stuff like that, I think that's gonna take some decades. But in terms of just, I think many of these apps, and so I got an invite a couple of days ago and I signed up, and it was kind of cool. It's only available now where in San Francisco, and they are gonna use, I think, an EOS token, but you can't really buy it right now. The token you have to use, or you can't buy with crypto because the contract is not up on EOS at the moment. I think it's gonna be called a UPX token, and you can only buy it now with in the game after invite, after with like PayPal. And that was kind of shady, and it reminded me about Lino a little bit, where we are kind of used to these token systems where it's kind of shady, it's not that transparent, you don't really know what goes on in the background. You need to have a white paper or something like that, and you need to sort of have people be able to look at the contract and look how the tokens apply and consider it for themselves. Is this something that can be successful? Because we know 2018 wasn't a fun year, and we know that a lot of people do not want to repeat that. But so how it's supposed to work is like you buy pieces of land, and we've seen this done with a lot of other experimentations. Some of them also have failed, or a lot of them probably has failed. But it's all about the race towards sort of making Minecraft / Pokemon Go plus crypto. And that might sound like super easy. Telos sort of tried to do that a little bit, where you can sort of create stuff with sort of blocks, a bit like Minecraft, and you paint Telos. But really making it a super hit, I mean, we saw Pokemon Go do some stuff 2016, but then that wasn't with crypto, and it's a lot of these barriers and hurdles that stuff has to go through before you can really have something that brings scale and the people are actually is using. I mean, a lot of it is just about getting people on the best software, hardware with new phones. And that's going to take some time. And other aspects are, as I said, just increase awareness and more developers and stuff like that. And more consumers, like more people that are just paying attention to something, using their consciousness in a particular field. So people, like, there's a lot of potential value that people have not explored, where you sort of look at what a person identifies with, and you sort of make value systems around that. A simple way of looking at this is, for example, now Samsung has done it with their phones. You can make an emoji out of your own face. It's kind of clever because people identify them with themselves, so you can sort of have your own sort of guy walking around in some virtual world eventually. And you can send yourself as a virtual guy to other people. And it's a lot of these fun things you can play around with to generate more value with just looking at what people identify with. And for example, people identify with brands. They identify with a lot of cool stuff in the physical world, like physical places, that they maybe have personal emotional experiences with, and you can sort of create value systems around those things. And that's going to be cool to see it be explored much more. And you can see pretty fast that many of these systems, the problem with them is they're very closed at the moment, and like the more you can open these systems up to be more inclusive and everyone can be an owner, own shares, get dividends, mine, all this, the more you can open up these systems, the faster you can sort of innovate, the faster you can run experiments. And it's all about looking at how can you make systems that just runs themselves, creates value by themselves, and the people consuming it constantly, and that you can really, another way that people haven't looked at is how you can look at what people identify a lot with different sports, and how you can tie crypto to that in a way where people sort of want to own shares in their sports teams and all this. And I mean, it's going to take some time to map all this together, right? And it's going to take a bunch of different forms, because people use their intelligence differently. They have their own experience and stuff like that I talked about. They think about the world in different ways. They have different emotional experiences and so on. But it's interesting how fast, especially I think 2019, I really started to see a lot of interesting development that is just in the beginning phase. And the big parts is that I started to look at that more crypto stuff is now inside of the phone. Maybe in the past, or at least 2018, there was no sort of app for many stuff. Now these apps, especially 2019, they're slowly starting to be rolled out. And it makes it so the device, you need more RAM on your phone, you need more storage, it slows down, and you can feel the device is starting to slow down. And this makes it also so it takes another 2 years, 2021, 2022, where people then will have devices that are more capable. And then in 2021, 2022, you're going to have more mature experiences of these apps that are being rolled out 2019. So it's interesting to see how it's being played out. And for me, it's really all about like seeing it, how you start to see limitations in everything after you see how inclusive crypto systems can be, and you sort of can just consider like cool stuff that that would be nice to have. That would be maybe inside the phone. There's a way quickly where you can make your own app and have it instantly be posted to a decentralized store, and have it available on iOS, and have it available on Android. But then you need to remove these centralized systems that just slow stuff down. If you can build an app super fast, in theory you should be able to build your own sort of Instagram, or your own sort of so-called real estate game, virtual game. You should be able to build these things, build your own game, and do it all on the device. But then of course you need more powerful devices. So it's all trying to move into the same direction eventually, where you don't need a big desktop to do something. And then we can really start to see who has the best ideas. When everyone can sort of create stuff super fast and they have the resources available, then you can truly see who is the human genius. Because a lot of these projects that are being started right now, it is let's say it's 10 people that are trying to do something successful in the same niche, and maybe you see 2 succeed a lot in terms of get like media attention and so on. But you started out with a base of 10 people maybe trying to do something, or let's say 100 people, okay, and let's say 5 people make something that gets mainstream attention. But that doesn't mean it's going to have long-term scale and successful. But if you have fully open systems where people have access to the same information and same knowledge, and can do a lot of stuff on the device instantly, don't have to go and search for something. They just have to say out loud what you want to do, and it's just going to create it in the virtual world. When you have that, people will be able to build stuff, or instead of then just have maybe 100 people trying to do something, you're gonna have, let's say, 10 million people trying to do one thing, and then out of those 10 million people, one thing is gonna come out that's obviously gonna be a way better system, because there were 10 million people that tried to do something, and they had all the resources, knowledge, information, and everything, and their creativity. You're gonna get something better out of that. While a lot of this stuff that has been started right now, I think is like, yeah, it's everyone is not sitting on the same information. People don't have the big data that because humans, it's you can start to see humans be able to mine their own sort of data and run their own sort of research on that. You're starting to see that in smaller scale right now, but when people truly have access to big data, they used to have better information for how to do something successfully. And it's basically all about the data, and that's what we're sort of starting to see in all of or in many industries, that the one who has access to the best sort of data, they can sort of do stuff way better. They can sort of outperform a lot of systems. So I don't really know if these sort of real estate and connecting the physical with, like, if people actually would pay for like virtual real estate and sort of be an owner of that section in a virtual game. Well, we already have seen, of course, we have seen successful stuff of this happening, and maybe there are going to be people interested in this for bragging rights or something like that, but it still comes down to, if it's just pay and wait for someone else to like overbuy you, then they have to like constantly innovate, right, to sort of to show they are in it for the long term. Because a lot of problems we saw 2018 is a lot of projects just they were talking big words, but then they couldn't really back that up, and then it just fades away, like the project that they said they would do. So when people have more data about this, they will eventually be able to look at all the stuff that has happened in the past, and then they look at the new project and they sort of consider, well, does this really have some unique selling point? And can they really scale? And is it something that people truly care about? Is it something that people can invest their time, energy, resource into? Because if it's just something that is super simple and it's just all about buying something, then you have to make it engaging. You have to have good graphics. You have to have some form of way, maybe, where people actually are communicating inside of that thing. And it's going to be so many experimentations with this. And we know that also that, so people are probably going to find creative ways to make stuff work, because when they get a little bit of success in something, that gives them permission, like they feel inside of themselves that it gives them permission to explore further how you can develop something that's better. And in many ways, eventually you start to go into these systems that run themselves. Eventually companies are gonna run themselves, and maybe you need to do some maintenance sometimes, but you have then so much more energy to be able to pay attention to other stuff that sort of needs to be done. So that is what I wanted to talk a little bit about today. Upland, still very, very early, and I'm not really sure if these stuff can take off eventually, because I know that like some things are fun, but you don't know if it's going to be the fun the next week or the next month or the next year, or if it's just going to get boring eventually. Because especially with these sort of game experiences, so at one point I was considering Well, games maybe are gonna be the thing that's gonna bring the most value to people, and in terms of mining of tokens and stuff like that. But then I sort of started to consider it. Well, if we're gonna have AI built games and AI built in virtual world, then that's gonna bring it down to near zero marginal cost probably eventually, and that is maybe going to make it so what people basically care about, maybe they're gonna put more value into something else that they care more about. Maybe they're gonna care about these virtual games super much, and they're gonna push a lot of value inside of them. Like, yeah, we can see a lot of big stuff, a lot of e-gaming stuff like that. I mean, it's getting huge, right? It's getting huge. But we also know that the exponential curve in AI and stuff like that, we don't know how that is going to develop. When the AI is, and it's always already has happened a lot, that the AI is sort of better than a lot of humans in a lot of games, we don't really know if we are going to look at the human player and going to pay him a lot of value in the future if we can just have an AI do something. So yeah, it's like, it's kind of interesting to consider. So we know that people want fun, like that, and we know that people many times enjoy parodies and humor and stuff like that. So in many ways, that is sort of maybe a good bet. So a lot of these things like Upland and stuff like that, it may have a bright future if you keep making it fun and parody, and you really have cool graphics inside of it, maybe like full 3D effects, and maybe you can make it more like The Sims or something like that. I don't really know, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. At least it's going to be interesting to see this space evolve, and yeah. And I mainly think that the main value is going to come from experimentation. So when everyone can sort of make stuff like this, make their own sort of crypto kitties, but with different graphics, or when they can make their own virtual real estate game and have some kind of token, the value probably is going to come from the experimentation, and then we're just going to allow people to experiment, and then something is going to be a massive success. But I don't think it's just about copy paste, because that's something that we've seen people try, but it's almost like people can sort of spot when someone is not really investing a lot of time and energy and resource in something. So if they would just copy and paste something, and I mean, this is what we've seen in a lot of stuff, in a lot of games, people try to copy and paste it, or if they have an AI that can do this, people still somewhat going to detect probably that nobody invested really that much time, energy, resources into this. So it's almost like they want some human aspect behind something, that they sort of see, well, this person paid a lot of attention to something and they did something really well, and humans can sort of detect that kind of fast when something is really genuine or organic or authentic or something like that. So that's kind of a cool aspect with humans. So the most engaging stuff is probably going to be watching all the experiments and seeing people improve, right? So that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. And yeah, I was just considering how cool it would be to make your own sort of crypto kitties, but it's just a lot of stuff is still kind of closed down, and I want to see more experimentation. Yeah, have a great day, DTube and Steam blockchain. Bye bye.